We are at the Phat Fish Brewery in Dickinson, North Dakota for our Phat Stacks poker tournament as the Dakota Poker Tour Season XI continues. Currently we have 7 or 58 players registered. We just are getting done with our first break. There's plenty of time to get in on the action. If you are from the Dickinson area, you want to come on down, we'd love to see you. But as it stands, we have our feature table ready to go. Everyone else we're ready to get back into the action. So let's introduce our players real quick. In seat 1, we have Maxon Marsh of Dickinson. He's going to have 34,700 in chips. In seat 2, Casey King of Dickinson, 31,000 in chips. Seat 3, Jace Turner of Dickinson, 20,100 in chips. Dean Madler in seat 4 of Dickinson, 19,800 in chips. Seat 5, Jeremy Hausauer of Halliday, North Dakota, 32,200 in chips. In seat 6, we have Willard Barnes of Lemon, South Dakota. He's got a starting stack on this feature table of 30,000. In seat 7, Andrew Schmidt of Dickinson, 29,400 in chips. In seat 8, Jerry Pockel of Dickinson, 42,600 in chips. And rounding off our feature table here, Kevin Crone of Dickinson, 43,700 in chips. We've got our shuffle up and deal, I think. Already did the shuffle up and deal, so we are good to go. You see our field here. We got a number of players out there. I think 7 tables going currently. Blind levels are at 400, 800 with an 800 big blind ante. And gosh, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Brian. I'll be the voice in your ear all day long, I guess. Has been a number of weeks since the Dakota Poker Tour has been in action since the Listen Inc. Monster Stack in Grand Forks. But here we're out in Dickinson for the Phat Fish Phat Stacks poker tournament and one-day tournament. We got it's a one-day tournament. So just Sunday, that is today. We got 5 players in. So Andrew Schmidt will bet 1,600 here over to Maxon, and Casey, we'll fix your name on here right after this hand. He's not a Cassie. That's a Casey. So 3 calls, 2 calls. Maxon will check. Casey will bet 2,200. And we'll get a couple folds, so Casey will win our first pot on our first hand on our feature table. Kevin Crone looking down at Queen 6, he'll fold. Got Jace Turner with ace-jack suited. He's going to fold. Jace will call the big blind of 800. Andrew in the small blind will call, and Jerry will check his option. We'll go 3 players to the flop. Comes deuce 5 ace. No help to any player, really. And right now, so again, I am fairly about 20 feet from the table, so I will try to talk about hands when I can, but based on the ambient noise going on in the room, may not be able to talk specifically about hands, but that's just A-okay. We want the integrity of the game to stay intact. Got a couple players calling big blind of 800, and Jerry will raise to 4,400. Kevin will fold over to Jace. Jace will fold, and I imagine Andrew would fold as well. And we'll take a look at our chip stacks again. Jerry and Kevin virtually tied with 15% of the chips on the table. And yeah, Jace and Dean fighting at the bottom. Even for our short stacks at the table currently, there'd be no reason to rush and want to double up or need to hurry, you know, and there's not as much of a sense of urgency to start accumulating more chips soon. But the blinds are still low enough where no need to starting to shove all in and whatnot. It's still very early in the tournament, and you got plenty of time to catch those hands. Casey will fold. Jeremy will call. Willard calls. And Jerry will call. Kevin in the small blind calls, and Maxon will check his option, and we have one big family pot going into the flop. These are some of the most fun hands when basically everyone calls, and it's where you can find the most crazy of hands, whether there's, you know, straight opportunities or flushes or trips or whatnot. I mean, it would be tough to make many reads on these players if, you know, with 5 people going in, 6 people going in on the flop. We're going to check around. Jeremy bets 2K. So far, no callers, and Jeremy will win with that 2,000 chip bet. once again, if you are in the Dickinson area, there is still plenty of time to get in on the action. And you are a poker player, of course. Come on down to Phat Fish down on Villard Street and buy in. And, hey, you could be our next DPT champion. Of course, winning a DPT event would mean that you are automatically entered into our Tournament of Champions at the end of the season, which is basically a free roll and could win a $1,500 World Series of Poker prize package. So every tournament counts, every time you place it, it all counts and adds up to potentially winning and ultimately the Player of the Year. If you are a Player of the Year, meaning you have won the most, not necessarily first place, but cashing and consistently placing in the top 5 or 10 positions will certainly put you in the running for the Player of the Year, of which we'll give away another $1,500 World Series of Poker prize package. So Jerry will raise to 5,100. Looks like Casey folds. Jace will call for 4,300. More action now on Andrew, whether or not he wants to call. Looks like Andrew is going to call here. Yep, there it is. So we'll have 3 in on the flop. Flop comes 3-8-8. Oh my. This could definitely get quite interesting. So Andrew throws C-bet, 3,000. Jerry and Jace both call. The turn comes at 10. Jace will check. Andrew will check over to Jerry. He'll check, and our turn is a 9 of spades, so the flush gets there. If someone does, in fact, have 1 spade. So Andrew will lead out with 3,000. Jerry will call. No, he'll raise. Jerry will raise to 10,200. That'll get Jace out of the way, over to Andrew. Mr. Schmidt will go all in. Jerry calls, and Andrew's going to feel absolutely disgusted, but it's a high flush, but it's not the highest. So that's going to eliminate Andrew from the tournament. I think, well, no, maybe not quite yet. He has the option to add on, buy some more chips. So Andrew will be coming back in. He hasn't bought in for the full 300. So he may have been eliminated for the moment, but he will be back in very shortly. Looks like we're going to have another family pot, 4 players in. Flop comes 5, 6, 10. Action starts on Casey, who does in fact have 2 cards. Same as Dean. Dean's going to lead out for 6,000 over to Jerry. Jerry will fold over to Kevin. Kevin looks like he's reaching, and he will raise it up to 15,000. And it looks like Dean's going to be going all in. Kevin calls, and Kevin's going to be disappointed because he ran into Rockets. So Kevin's tournament life is at stake. 7 on the turn. One of the jacks is gone. He's got 1 out, and 1 out only. And it's a 3 on the river, a total blank. Dean, I believe, knocks Kevin Crone out, unless he hasn't used up his full add-ons.
The jacks.
Extremely unfortunate time to run into aces, but, you know, what can you do? Got some good news. I have a few more players trickling in since last time we mentioned, so probably getting up towards that 60-player mark if we haven't eclipsed it already.
Not that time. For Kevin, they were. Really open for
Got a lot of all-ins and calls going on around in the other tables in the tournament. So it sounds like we have some either very aggressive players or a lot of people are short-stacked, which we've been going on for about 2.5 hours, and it does happen, but you kind of hate to bust out or be put into a short stack position only a couple hours into a full day tournament. But eventually, everyone's got to bust out but one person. Gonna check on the flop and turn. It's like Andrew will bet 2,000. He'll make the call. Jace will. River comes to 7 of clubs. Action will be on Jace first. And it looks like they've checked. And Ace King will take it on home, giving Andrew Schmidt the check mark and the chips. Here we see Kevin raising it up to 2,000. Jace is all in for $4.8 thousand, not actual money. And Jace, disgusting ace 9 running into the Rockets. Super unfortunate. And there comes 9 Jack 7. Jace has thus far 1 out and 1 out only. He'll need a 9. Still just needs a 9. Turn is no help. Essentially a blank onto the river. And the river's a 7. That's going to give Kevin the check mark, and that's going to eliminate Jace Turner from Fat Stacks. Well, it sounds like Jace will re-enter. We're going to add back on. So, although it may be early and though players are technically busting out, not all of them have bought in for the full 300. So, they are able to return to their table once they bust out, add on the rest of the amount, and continue their fight to be the next Fat Stacks champion. We do have Jeff Gabb in the house. Jeff, our winner from the Fat Stacks last year. We'll see if Jeff can continue to be the reigning champion out here in Dickinson. Certainly would love to be out west more, doing some poker tournaments out here, getting some FaceTime on our friends out west. You can only do so much, right? You can only do so much. So despite seeing 2 players busting on our table, they're back in, so we are still at a full table. Here we see our flop coming, Deuce, Jack, King. And Willard will bet, and Jeremy will fold.
30. He bought 30.
Kevin raising it up to 2,000. It looks like everybody will fold. They're scared of him, I guess. Kevin, kind of a big bully on the table, but definitely enjoy that play style a lot. And Kevin being second to last place on the table, one of the short snacks, I understand that he would definitely want to be aggressive to steal blinds and antes, and just maybe generally get players to call with the bigger stacks, call with a little looser. Maybe he'll have more of a premium hand. Who knows? We'll see how it all turns out. Great job to Kevin on winning that last pot, and we shall move right along. So I have a bunch of players calling the big blind of 800. But Dean will deviate from that trend and raise it up to 2,800. Andrew Schmidt, 2,400 to call. He'll fold. Over to Kevin. Or Jerry, rather. Looks like Jerry calls. Kevin will fold. Over to Maxon Marsh. He will call for 2,000. I think everyone's called in. Our flop comes deuce, deuce, 3. Rainbow. So Jerry will be first to act. He'll check. Over to Maxon Marsh. He'll check. Jace and Dean all check. I was dealing on this table prior to starting up the live stream. We got another deuce on the turn. It seemed like when there was a lot of players in, it was fairly common to check, check, check around on the flop, which my style of play would be if I got checks around the table, I'm at least going to put some money out there because I want it to, cost whoever wants to see a turn, then they have to pay to play. Even if I don't have the best hand, sometimes, seems like more often than not, I'm scaring everyone out and I get to pick up an easy pot. But here we see 5 on the river. Maxon will check. Dean will check. And I would definitely like to see Maxon be a bit more aggressive there, knowing he does have the full house with the help of the 3 deuces
I've had him 25 times.
on the board. But what, someone has to have, there's the 3 and a 5 out there. I mean, you'd have to have queens, kings, or aces to beat him, or a deuce. So I would like to see Maxon being a bit more aggressive on that, but, that's just how she goes. So the blinds will be going up after this hand. It'll be 500, 1,000 with a 1,000 chip big blind ante. Here Maxon looking down at 2 cards and will make a decision. Check. Well, he can't check. Either call, bet, or fold. And he will call. Casey King calls. We're going to fold around to Mr. Willard Barnes. Willard coming all the way from Lemon, South Dakota. It's the longest traveled person I have met yet today. Pretty much everyone at the table is from Dickinson, with the exception of Willard and Jeremy over to his right in seat 5. He's from Halliday. We got another family pot, just super friendly. No one wants to be mean. Just going to get a lot of players in, a lot of money in the middle. Jerry checks. Kevin will bet out for 2,000. Maxon calls, and everyone else will fold. So we got Kevin versus Maxon. Deuce on the turn. Kevin will bet out for 3,000. Maxon will call. And a 7 on the river. Kevin's going to throw out a blue chip worth 5,000. We'll see if Maxon decides to call or fold or raise. Those are possibility 3 of the things he could do, and he does call. He's going to be sorely disappointed that his pocket 10s did not hold up against Kevin's 2-pair. So now our blinds will be up to 1,000 or 500, 1,000, and a 1,000 chip big blind ante. And Jace is looking down at some suited connectors. Dean will fold. Jeremy folds. Andrew folds. Over to Jerry. Jerry will call. Kevin in the small blind. He'll call. Maxon in the big blind. He'll call. 1,000 more. And we got 4 players in on the flop. 10, 8, 10 comes the flop. Kevin will check. Maxon checks. Jace checks. And Jerry checks. Turn is a deuce. Imagine we'll see some chips going in the center of the pot now. So Kevin will lead out for 3,000. Maxon calls. Jace. He'll fold. Jerry will get out of the way as well. So our river comes a 3 of spades. Kevin will bet 4,000 over to Maxon. He'll flat. No, he raises to 14,000. Kevin reaching for some fat stacks. Haha. So Kevin calls, and I think they flipped their cards up, so we can now say, holy crap, that was an extremely unfortunate hand for Kevin. Catching trips on the flop, but Maxon having pocket eights, and an 8 comes out, flops the full house. Just, it could be worse. It could have been much, much worse for Kevin Crone. And again, you know, Maxon not being very aggressive, maybe not getting his full amount. I'm happy to see that he did raise it up on the river, but definitely could be a little bit more aggressive, maybe not getting enough chips in the pot, not good enough value for the hands he has been catching. So here we have Casey and Maxon battling it out. Got King 10 Queen, Jack on in the community cards there, and Maxon catching the Jack on the, actually with the straight, but Casey just edges him out with that ace high straight, the Broadway. If you can't join us out here in Dickinson and want to get in on some Dakota Poker Tour action, well, our next event will be announced. We'll have an event in March, but it will be announced next week. What we're anticipating. We're just finalizing some details and making sure everything's good to go there. But stay tuned for that, and for any and all updates on the Dakota Poker Tour, head over to dakotapokertour.com. Details about all of our upcoming events, and hey, if you are sitting at home and want to see, where the standings are, number of players left, this and that, I mean, everything in the tournament, you can click on live events, and you can get updates that way about our current tournament going on. So once again, for real-time updates on our tournament going on here that you're watching, DakotaPokerTour.com, and you'll be able to see in real-time updates of our Phat Fish poker tournament. So Jeremy will call the 1,000 or the big blind. Andrew will call. Mason will call. Casey will call. Dean will check his options, so we'll head 5 players to the flop. Flop comes 10 deuce 3. Dean will check. Jeremy, I believe, checks as well. Andrew checks. Over to Maxon. Oh, so Jeremy will bet the 2,000. Andrew will call. So we got 2 players going into the turn. Turn comes a jack of hearts. So 2 flush draws out there. Whether or not happens on the river, we'll see. But Jeremy will bet 3,000. And Andrew will wisely fold with his weaker kicker. So staying tuned on an event in March. March definitely gets busy for us on our gaming side of things, not necessarily the Dakota Poker Tour, so most of that month will be somewhat open, but we definitely want to get a tournament in the beginning, first couple weeks of the month. And then April 3rd, coming out right out of the gates out of March, April 3rd will be a Sunday. We'll be back in Jamestown for the Buffalo City Showdown at the Buff Bar. So that's about a month and a week or 2 away. And just as with many of our DPT events, you can win free seats at our FPN Poker Nights, Poker League Nights, to win seats for the Buffalo City Showdown. You can play at the Valley City Eagles, the Old 10 Saloon in Buffalo, North Dakota, Castleton Vets, and going to give a seat away at the Bismarck Am Vets. Here we got 3 players into the flop. Flop comes 10 king 4. Rainbow. Dean checks. Jeremy checks. Over to Casey, who will fire away for 2,500. Dean will call, and Jeremy will muck his hand. Going into the turn. Oh, everyone folded. Andrew Schmidt looking down at 2 cards. He'll make his decision on what to do on this hand based on those 2 cards. So Andrew call, big blind. Kevin Crone will call. Maxon Marsh will call. Jace Turner will call. No fold. No, he's in there. 1 big, happy family. Jeremy calls. Willard checks. 6 players in on the flop, and that comes ace, jack, 7, 2 spades out there. So Jeremy will check his option. Willard checks. Andrew checks. Kevin checks. Maxon checks. And Jace will also check. So no one really wanting to take a stab at the pot. Queen on the turn. Here, Jeremy will lead out for 5,000. Oh, what's that? Now, so that'll be 1,000. And then we had a fold. So we checked around into the 9 on the turn. And check, 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 check. And we're going to find out that Jeremy Hausauer's ace was good. You know, when you got 4, 5, 6 players in to the flop and you do catch something, I feel like you should be betting because at best more than half the players have draws. And so you don't want to give them a free card. So I'm seeing, in my opinion, too many free cards out here. I want to see some bets. I want to see some aggressiveness. I want to see some punishment by those who think they can limp in and try to catch a good hand and then see a free turn or even a free river. But that's just me. Maybe in the comments you can tell me what you want to see. So Andrew checks over to Maxon. Maxon will check. Turns a 7. Andrew checks. We're going to check into the river. Here comes a 5. We'll flip him over. And Andrew, with his deuce, will have the best hand. See, that's where, you know, Andrew's not really trying to trap him, and obviously we can see the whole cards, so we can, you know, diagnose or, you know, comment on hands a little bit better or know what the best move is. But again, would love to see a little bit more aggressiveness from Maxon. That he could have easily gotten Andrew off his deuce, you know, even with nothing. It's definitely how more of my style of play is being a little bit more aggressive and not allowing players to see free hands or free cards. I'm a big fan of making players pay to see more cards, even if I don't have the best one, but then it starts telling a story. And that story might be that I have a strong hand, and if you want to chase your draws, go for it. But if that card doesn't come up, you're going to pay for it. Kevin Crone raising to 4,000. I'm going to fold over to Jerry. And I think that's about it for that hand. That was quick. Guess we had a bunch of garbage out there. So there's a view of the beautiful brewery here in Dickinson, Phat Fish. There's a view of the taps, and then Man, really, the eye candy in this bar is the big fish on the back wall. We'll get a shot over there. Yeah, that's the baby right there. That's the coolest thing. Yeah, the eye piece. I don't know what you'd call it. The focal point. And then in the back, you got gaming behind that wall. And then behind the taps, you have axe throwing, super cool, and the brewery. So quite an incredible time here, but we're back in on the hand. So Maxon will call the big blind for 1,000. Casey will raise to 3,600, and we shall fold around to Jerry, who calls. Jerry's got a couple of mystery cards, which is always fun. It means we can, just a guessing game, we can kind of play along with Casey on what does Jerry have. So Casey will bet 5,700 and Jerry will fold quite quickly.
That's a good one. I had a 10% order.
It's a nice little shot of our feature table. And all in due time will be our final table once we get whittled down to 9 players. Jace all in for 700. It might be off. Just making sure our chip counts are correct. So Jace will be all in for 4,700, which looked a lot better than the 700 that we had. So Jeremy and Willard called. Flop comes 7-Jack-3. Check, check, deuce. Check, check, 9. Check, check, flip. And it looks like Willard. No, Jace rivers the 9. Jace, a much needed triple up. He'll be up over 12K now. Even 15 or 16K. There's our chip stack. So Jace just 16 big blinds left now. Boy, he didn't have much left. He had 4 big blinds left, really. But as we get up there, I mean, overall, not a ton of separation for the middle of the pack. But yeah, as you can see, it was time for Jace to start shoving all in. kind of doing that coin flip that you need to do once you get low in chips. And as a reminder, this stream will not be going till the conclusion of the tourney. We will end it when we find a nice hand to end on, and then we will restart the stream maybe when there's a couple tables left or for the final table. So definitely stay tuned later today for more live streaming. And if you're just joining us, you are watching the Phat Stacks poker tournament at Phat Fish Brewery in Dickinson, North Dakota. If you're not sure what we're playing, this is poker. This is Texas Hold'em, no limit poker. Jerry raised to 5.5 thousand. Casey calls. And we will see a flop. Flop comes 10-3-5. Couple of spades on the flop. Casey will check. Jerry, he'll bet 15,500. And Casey folds, and Jerry will slyly put his chips in the center, or his cards in the center, into the muck, and Jerry with a nice little hand there will take home some more chips. We might have another big old friendly pot. We'll see. Kevin raised it up to 3,500. Casey called. Andrew will call. Jerry will also call. So 4 players into the flop. You know, if you're gonna call a raised pot pre-flop, and then enter the turn, or then enter the flop, and everyone just checks. I mean, someone's got to have something at that point. Got a couple open-enders. So yeah, I'm hoping to see some aggressiveness here, and here's Andrew leading away for 5,000. This is the kind of play I was wanting to see. Here we see Kevin. He will call. And Casey with 2 cards will also make the call. And we're going to see a turn. The turn comes a 4 of hearts. Casey quickly checks. Andrew will check as well. And Kevin will check as well. It's free cards, more free cards. River comes at 3. Casey checks. Andrew checks. Kevin will check too. And Andrew will win with his pair of 10s. But man, I'd like to see someone starting to be a bit more aggressive, because I feel like a lot of these pots could be won without giving free cards to your opponents and possibly making their cards better. So we'll see a few more hands here, and then we'll go ahead and end our live stream for the beginning of the day, and we'll come back once it gets down to a couple tables and check out who's going to be the winner of our Phat Stacks poker tournament. So Jerry will raise to 3,100. Over to Maxon, who folds. Casey folds, Jace folds, Dean folds. And that's going to be a nice boring hand for all of us involved. All right, so Willard will fold. Andrew folds. Jerry raises it up to 2,400. Kevin folds. Maxon folds. Casey folds. Jace will make a decision. Looks like he calls. He'll make the call. And Dean calls as well. Jeremy calls in the big blind, and 4 players to the flop. And our flop will come deuce, jack, ace. Dean will check. Jeremy checks. Hate to see another pot go by with check, 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 check. But it looks like Jerry will end the trend and raise it up to 3,800. He'll bet 3,800. Jace, 3,800 to call. He will make the call. Dean will fold. Jeremy will fold. So we got 2 players into the turn. And the turn comes at 10 of hearts, opening up a flush draw, another one. Jerry betting 4,500. Jace, not many chips left, will make the call. And our river comes a deuce of hearts. So the heart flush draw gets there, but Jerry not scared, will fire away for 4,000, which would in effect put Jace all in. Yep. So that should officially eliminate Jace Turner from the tournament here. Very upsetting, but Jerry C being aggressive, making Jace make kind of a not the greatest of calls, but you know what? Being short stacked, you caught a jack. Something you got to do when you're getting down there and picking up a really nice size pot is Jerry Pockle of Dickinson, North Dakota. And that is going to do it for our stream right now. We are going to take a break. We'll be back once we get down to a couple tables left. If you'd like to come over to Phat Fish in Dickinson, because you're in the area, you have just a couple hours left until our dinner break and until registration is closed. So when we come back, we'll see the conclusion. We'll find out who is our next Phat Fish or Phat Stacks poker champion here on the Dakota Poker Tour. We'll see you all in a few hours.